Now, today in Minneapolis, an armed man was shot and killed by a Border Patrol agent. The agent was part of a federal immigration operation to arrest a criminal illegal alien. DHS says that during the operation, a man approached Border Patrol agents brandishing a gun. As the agents tried to disarm him, the man was shot and later died from his wounds. And with us now are Republican strategist and political columnist Angie Wong and Democratic strategist and former Obama regional campaign director Robin Biro. So let's talk about what's happened in Minnesota just to begin with. So can you start us off, Robin?
Yeah, so earlier today, there was a 37-year-old nurse, a VA nurse, who was recording ICE in their efforts to capture some illegal immigrants, but he was recording them with his phone. They engaged in what looked to be a confrontation. At that point, I think they noticed that he had a 9mm fire round, which ended up having 2 clips in it, which he does. I want to make clear here, I'm a veteran myself. I have a concealed carry permit. I carry firearms for my safety. I believe in the Second Amendment. He also legally was licensed to carry that firearm, but they did disarm him. And at that point, somehow he got upset about them disarming him or attempting to disarm him. They ended up in a confrontation. They ended up on the ground. 5 border agents, or excuse me, ICE agents were on top of him in a dog pile. And then from the video that I saw, it looked like he was shot about 5 times. And it's a horrible tragedy. It should never have come to that. And there's more questions than answers right now. I'm trying to reserve judgment until we have more information. But I want to point out that Kristi Noem said just this week that there will be some mistakes. They're not going to get it right 100% of the time. And I think, you know, at the end of the day, this may be a mistake. I know they're defending the actions of these agents right now today, but I think we need more information.
Now, Angie, what's your reaction to the shooting and what Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem said earlier today?
Yes, and I was watching the side-by-side press conferences between Kristi Noem as well as another press conference going on at the same time with the Minnesota leaders, and they had very conflicting messages. You know, what I'm seeing, and I agree with Robin, this is not only about politics. Someone died today. That should never have happened. That was an awful, awful tragedy. But the politics is what is on display as of just the last couple of hours with these press conferences. One side wants law enforcement, while the other side does not want law enforcement in Minnesota. There is no middle ground here. You either want a border or you don't want a border. You either want to have illegals in our country or you don't want to have illegals in our country. I think that is what's happening right now in the freezing cold streets of Minnesota, and you're just not going to have a resolution there. So, you know, I definitely urge everyone there to just stop fighting ICE, except that we need to have a border in order to have a country. That way we can prevent all these violence that we're seeing. And it is completely a tragedy that a man had to die for this. But, you know, Kristi Noem did say that this was all by the books, that this man had allegedly had a gun and that ICE agents were protecting themselves because he might have used his gun. But we're going to learn to find out more. I have seen the videos. It is just complete tragedy.
It is.
Now, Robin, Governor Walz chose not to deploy the National Guard to help quell this unrest. But after the shooting, he did. So was that a mistake?
Now that I'm not sure. What he's saying is that it was certainly, I believe in states' rights. That's one thing that I appreciate about the Republican Party is that they always stand up for states' rights. So obviously he has a right to govern as they see fit, but what they don't have a right to do is ignore federal orders regarding, you know, sanctuary cities. So that's where the rub is. That's the problem there. I don't have any problem with this gentleman today who was standing on the sidelines recording with his phone. But from there, things got way out of control, way out of hand. I just want to say there's a protest right here in my city today. I considered going, but I did not because of the fear for my safety. You know, I'm a single parent. I've got sole custody of my 2 kids. Everything falls on me. Be careful with how you proceed to these things. Be clear with your intent. If you're going to protest ICE, go with a sign. Don't go with a weapon. Don't go with aggression. Have a message. Do it lawfully. Try not to antagonize law enforcement. I mean, these are the rules that we need to be saying. We always try to do training to say this is the proper way to protest to keep you out of trouble and out of harm's way. We need to do more of that on both sides of the political aisle to avoid tragedies like this.
Now, Angie, this is the second deadly shooting in a matter of weeks. Do you expect the administration to change its approach after today's incident?
I think Kristi Noem said it earlier, which is you're going to see more and more of these incidents. And I know Amy Klobuchar also said it today in the press conference that this is not going to be just one incident. We're going to see more of this. And that's where I think Robin's right. You go in being a protester, not an agitator. Don't go around following ICE agents with your camera phone trying to, disrupt their operation. When all these agents piled on top of this man, that's not good. When you have all these cops, law enforcement coming at you, you stop. You don't, resist arrest. So I think, these are the steps that they've gone way too far. I'm really curious at this point whether or not the Minnesota leaders are now taunting the Trump administration to bring on the Insurrection Act. It seems like everything they're doing is pushing President Trump to do so. Tim Walz wants to bring on the National Guard, but guess what? If President Trump federalizes the National Guard, well, then he has control over it. So this is clearly some sort of federal versus local war being played out. And it's just unfortunate that Minnesotans have to be in the middle of all of this.
Now, Robin, President Trump is asking where local law enforcement was and why it isn't protecting the federal agents. So should they and local officials not be supporting ICE to enforce federal law?
In a perfect world, there would be coordination. There certainly has been in other cities across the country where ICE has been deployed. They're not just deployed to Minneapolis, Minnesota right now. We have serious border problems, for example, in Texas, in Florida, and in California. Those are much bigger states. There are bigger problems to tackle right there. So they're looking to start with something more manageable. In Minnesota, there's 92,000 immigrants that are there illegally by estimates. So I understand why they chose that. And like I said, in a perfect world, they would have cooperation, but it's not going to go anyone's way when they're both fighting with one another and doing this tit for tat back and forth thing. There has to be some kind of coordination if we're going to have an effective operation there. And safe one.
All right, Angie, final thoughts. How do you see this all playing out?
Well, the Pentagon's readying 1,500 troops right now. I'm talking about National Guard, ready to go into Minnesota. This doesn't end tonight. Already the NBA has canceled one of its games tonight because they fear the safety of Minnesotans and travelers going to the game. This is going to be the hotbed for the next days, weeks, maybe months of these ICE protests. There's a fundamental disagreement between the two sides. One wants law enforcement while the other doesn't. I don't know if you get to choose that in this country. I think you have to follow the law and you can't just be selective about it. So I really do hope that there is a successful end to all this. But believe me, the agitators are really enjoying this moment and they're getting a lot of media for what's been happening on the ground there.
Angie Wong and Robin Biro, thank you so much for joining us.